Om Gyantimirandhasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham karoti vachalam pangam langayate girim Yatkripatamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhaktashaktikam. So we are beginning with Nectar of Instruction, verse 2nd. It's about the 6 impediments on the path of Bhakti. Atyahara Prayasascha Prajalpo Niyamagraha Janasangascha Laulyamcha Shadbhir Bhakti Vinashyati. So Shadbhir means these 6 things, Bhakti Vinashyati. Vinash means basically destroys. So these 6 qualities, they hamper, negatively impact our bhakti. And what are those? One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. Too much entangled in these 6 activities. One is Atyahara. Atyahara Prabhupada translates as eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required becomes Atyahara. Atyahara leads to Prayasa, because if you want to eat more than necessary or collect more than required, then one will over endeavor towards material gains, over endeavor for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. Then the third is Prajalpo, which is talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. And there are many kinds of Prajalpa we will see today. Then there is Niyam Agraha, which is of 2 types. We will discuss those. Practicing the scripture rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. We will see them in detail, both of them. Then there is Jana Sangas, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in bhakti, in Krishna consciousness, and Laulya is being greedy for mundane achievements. So Prabhupada begins by saying there is 3 kinds of Shaktis of Krishna. Antaranga Shakti is internal potency, Srimati Radharani. Tathastha Shakti is marginal, and the living entities come under Tathastha Shakti. They are called marginal because they have a free will to come under the internal potency of Krishna or be influenced by the external potency. Both opportunities are available. And because the living entity can either be in Maya or can be with Krishna, he is called marginal. Prabhupada says two kind of living entities who are marginal, two kind of tathashtas. One are Mahatmas and one are Duratmas. Those who willingly come under by their own free will, right use of their free will, always try to be under the control of internal potency. They are Mahatmas. Prabhupada called them broad-minded or satisfied Krishna senses. Duratmas are called cripple-minded because only interested in personal sense gratification. Broad-minded is they are not interested in their own sense gratification, but they are interested in serving Krishna. Serving Krishna is more important than serving my own senses. So that becomes Mahatmas. But I am more important than Krishna service. We become Duratmas. Um, Duratmas are of two types. One is who are, two forms of Duratmas. Those who are interested in personal sense gratification or extended sense gratification, connected to I, me, mine. Prabhupada gives example of my nationality, my nation. I have to fight. It's not selfless, it's because it's my nation, because I am born in this nation. So this nation belongs to me now. So there is a identification at the bodily level. And then we may say that I'm working for my nation. I'm selflessly working for my nation. Like there are many people during the time of Mahatma Gandhi, they were selflessly working for the nation. But Prabhupada says, according to scripture, it is nationalism because it is emanating from the identification with the body. Prabhupada also was in the same view. Prabhupada said, first we have to free ourselves from the Britishers. Otherwise, who will listen to us? And Saraswati Thakur did not approve of it. Saraswati Thakur says, well, Krishna consciousness is an emergency. Political situations will keep on coming and going and keep on changing. Sometimes favorable, sometimes not favorable. But Krishna consciousness emergency. Then humanity, altruism, this becomes extended sense gratification because if I do some humanitarian work, then I feel good about it. If it is not done for the pleasure of Krishna, then we are triple-minded still, um, because I get some satisfaction by helping, which is not Krishna-centered. It's still considered pleasure in mode of goodness, and mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance, all are material by nature. That's why Prabhupada called them under extended sense gratification. So Tathashta, they have a choice. They can either be Mahatmas or Duratmas. We try as practicing devotees as much as possible to come under the control of the internal potency of Krishna, to satisfy Krishna, even if it is sometimes difficult for us. Then there is Bahiranga, which is the Maya Shakti, material potency that subjects the jivas to Bahiranga Shakti or material potency. There is Adi Daivik, which is tsunamis and others. There is Adi Bhautik, which is from other living entities, and Adi Atmik, from one's mind and senses. All these are by the influence of material potency. Then we will go to one by one. The first is Atyahara. Ati. Ati means too much or excessively. Ati Sundar. ये तो बहुत सुंदर है. So Ati matlab बहुत in a way. So Ati means too much or excessive. And Ahar means two. One is Ahar means food, and Ahar means to acquire, consume, to seize, grasp, or consume for one's own enjoyment. Ahar. Ahar means hamare liye, for me, something for me. That's Ahar. It can be food for me is also ahar, or anything for me. So when too much endeavor is being put for me, atyahar, ati ahar, too much accumulation of something, too much food, then we become incremented by ahar. And naturally, we can see that atyahar will lead to prayasa. Now I need to work very hard to acquire or to get whatever I want. This again goes against the principles of simple living. Prabhupada always says simple living, high thinking. Simple living means, whatever is necessary, acquire, take care of the necessities. Otherwise, becomes a burden actually. Atyahara means excessive enjoyment of the sense objects through any one of the senses. Excessive use of eyes for sense gratification, or tongue for sense gratification, or ears for sense gratification, sense of touch, sense gratification, nose for sense gratification. Then we become incriminated by atyahar. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, any one of the roaming senses can take us away from Krishna's service. Raghunath Das Goswami has set a very, very high bar. For him, like His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj says, for him, drinking buttermilk was also a tyahar. It's just, that's a level that our Goswamis have shown by their own example. Maharaj says, Raghunath Das Goswami would condemn himself thinking, I'm wasting my time. And how much time it takes to drink buttermilk? I don't know, a few seconds. So that's why Srinivasacharya explains that six Goswamis were constantly engaged in serving Krishna. That's a level. Now we can engage in Krishna's service to the best of our ability. That's why we cannot copy them, but Prabhupada says, be sincere. Any extra time, try to remain Krishna conscious, because so many facilities in this material world to become distracted. And then comes our free will. And the endeavor to accumulate in excess of one's requirement. If you put a lot of endeavor, that becomes prayasa, to accumulate. Renunciants are forbidden to accumulate material goods. For those in renounced order, getting anything which they don't use becomes atyahara. Anything more than their clothing or the basic necessities trying to acquire for renunciate, they become atyahara. Atyahara has different definition based on one's ashram. For vanaprasthas, having a home or a vehicle, anything becomes atyahara. I mean, in the ancient time, they would depend on the nature in the forest, and their main limb is austerity. Grihastha, Prabhupada says, whatever is necessary, acquire, but Prabhupada emphasized simple living. Grihastha Vaishnavas can acquire goods sufficient for their maintenance. Like for a brahmachari or sannyasi, even accumulating food for next few days is atyahara. Or, oh, these are nice sweets. Let me pack something for tomorrow. I'll eat some gulab jamuns tomorrow. So then he become implemented by atyahara. So whatever Krishna provides, I'll depend on that. Don't depend on our own arrangements. But then grihasthas can stock. But if then there's a thin line. Prabhupada says acquire sufficient, good sufficient for their maintenance, but not beyond their basic needs. Animals do not eat or collect. Prabhupada gave an example of a bag of rice. Prabhupada says if a bird comes and there's a bag of rice, he will take a grain and go away. So birds don't incriminate themselves in atyahara. But a human, he will come, he will not take what he needs for the day. He will take the bag of rice and stock it. So Prabhupada is teaching by an example of animals that simple living. When they need, they search. That example is more relevant for denounced order, for grihasthas. Whatever is needed for simple living is good. Then, example of Atyahara is Bhakti, economic development. No. I need to be very well to do. Desire for Bhakti, Mukti, Siddhi, and Kami. These desires more than what is required for simple living and leads to atyahar. So bhukti is material happiness, economic development. Mukti is speculators over endeavor to acquire knowledge, write books, or drive philosophy. Saraswati Thakur commentary. Acquiring more books than one can read is also atyahar. Rather, one should take a book, one should read it, and then one should go to next one should read it. Then that is good. Or specifically for um, um, impersonalist, reading so much Vedas and gaining a lot of knowledge is also atyahar. So we don't read books because we want to gain knowledge or we want to know more. We read books because we want to remain Krishna conscious. Or I want to hear about Krishna, about the devotees of Krishna, about the pastimes of Krishna, about the qualities of Krishna. Then it is bhakti centered. Why? Because I want myself to be absorbed in Krishna or Krishna's pure devotees. But when it is dry speculation, dry philosophy, or acquiring, then one becomes that is also atyahara. Then siddhis is, I need these mystical powers. I'm working so I can get those. Atyahara, that also. So many people do Atyahara in that way. Their whole goal of yoga is to develop some mystic siddhis, and when they get it, they become distracted by those siddhis. And kami are materialist or sense gratifiers, gather scientific knowledge or money. Like so many people are doing so much research in the scientific field towards things here and there. Everything is Atyahara. There's a lot of endeavor in that direction. Actually, this is also an illusion that one thinks I can save humanity, because those who are supposed to die are going to die based on their karma, and those who are supposed to get some pain, they are going to get the pain independent of medicines we have. How material nature works is everything comes on atyahara. One may think like, no, we don't agree, but how material nature works is we may find a solution to one disease, another will come, and that will capture those whose time has come. We may resolve that disease. New and newer diseases, so many diseases today, whether it is cancer or COVID, or none of them existed. We never heard about cancer 50 years back. Very new disease, but captures so many people. Before that, tuberculosis, something would come. They would find a disease, something else would come. AIDS came in the middle, captured. Bubonic plague came, captured. So the material nature is more intelligent than us. We should not think, I can change the laws by my own endeavor. It's just we put our whole life trying to change or improve something. And then we end up in, whatever comfort one is destined is based on one's karma. So we don't see people endeavoring very hard. But, one should work according to one's varnashram for the maintenance of the society. But Prabhupada says gathering scientific knowledge or gathering money, mm, they also engage in atyahara. So above are some examples. Now, above examples engages in prayasa. If you want scientific knowledge, research, money, if you want siddhis, a lot of effort is needed in that direction. So many dry philosophical books, speculation, writing books which are not based on bhakti, trying to make economic development more than necessary. Then we work very hard. And then when we work very hard, it's a distraction. We may say, I'm dovetailing these in Krishna service, but actually it's an over endeavor. Prabhupada says a 9 to 5 you work sincerely, and rest of the time you try to develop your Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is an emergency. Krishna consciousness is our priority. We don't see Maharaj Ambarish trying to really make the nation the best of the best, being the king. Rather, he would himself clean the temple hall and worship the deities. Everything is provided by the Lord. But our best utilization of time, our parodharma, our best utilization of time is ahitokya pratihata bhakti. The whole world is engaged in, so this becomes an impediment. Why? Because it takes our energy, it takes our consciousness. Then we develop, one association of material desire leads to another desire, leads to another desire. Now I want a little bit bigger, a little bit more, a little bit better. And then one leads to another, and it's a cycle. And one may put a lot of energy in that. But that time needs to be engaged in maximizing serving Krishna. We see sages practicing austerities um, for a long, long time. Bhakti is the best utilization of one's time. Okay. Then economic problems and solutions. Prabhupada says these are some things from Prabhupada emphasize on simple living. Prabhupada says land and cows. Prabhupada says anyone can live peacefully with some land and a cow. Prabhupada says some land and a cow. Very healthy life. Actually, it's like Satyayuga actually. If you can live with some land and cow, get milk, and you can grow some vegetables, and then you can sell some. Um, the funds can be used for other necessities to acquire clothing and other things. And everything is, if milk is there, vegetables, grains, everything comes. Then Prabhupada says, very simple living. Very difficult for city lives. Prabhupada gives an example of communist and capitalist. Prabhupada said, capitalists accumulate wealth more than needed. Capitalists are like big, they have big chunk of resources. CEOs or they 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 run the economy of the nation. So big chunks. Communists, envious of their prosperity, want to nationalize. They say, no, all the big chunks should go to government and everybody national, everybody like everybody normal, everybody well to do. And Prabhupada says these communists, they are saying this is what we want, but because they are envious of those who are prosperous, so they want to nationalize everything. But both are sense gratification, basically. Example, different responses on seeing $100 bill on the street. Some will keep it with themselves. They are like capitalists. Become more. Acquire more. Then some avoid and some return to the owner. So best is to return, which is we avoid is like no, this is material energy. That is also not the best thing to do, but return it to whom it belongs to. Likewise, this whole material world and all the resources belongs to Krishna. So Prabhupada says everyone should use everything one has in the service of Krishna, the real owner. Don't encroach others' right. All wealth belongs to Krishna. This word is designed to fulfill everyone's necessities. One who takes more than required is a thief and is liable to be punished by the laws of nature. Krishna has kept cow milk for human consumption. We should be satisfied with those things that he has kindly set aside for us. So this is an example from Ishopanishad. When we go there, we will discuss in more detail. But the main principle is don't encroach in others' rights. God has, Ishopanishad says, God has set aside a certain quota for each one of us, and we should be satisfied with the quota set aside for us. But don't use, like, example, cow milk is a quota set aside for human consumption. Use it. So this is God gift. Krishna has made arrangements for the survival of us. He has given us plants and various fruits and vegetables for human consumption. Use them. Set aside cow milk. Use that. So whatever God has, there's this natural living. Krishna has made arrangements, so all living entities will be satisfied. Live animal lives, human life, everyone is in a system following God's laws. But when we become greedy and when we encroach in what is meant for somebody else, then we become punishable by the laws of nature. Um, Prabhupada gives an example. Nuclear bombs are in the hand of both communists and capitalists. But if both do not recognize the proprietorship of the Supreme Lord, it is certain that these bombs will ultimately ruin both parties. So this is like encroaching. Communists want to bring down the capitalist. Capitalists want to cancel the communist and be the real powers. So then they both have different countries. Some nations are communist, some are capitalist. They both have nuclear powers. So if we don't recognize, well, everything belongs to Krishna, then we fight over this should be nationalized or this should be given to me. Then this is all, they are all trying to claim proprietorship or make somebody the proprietorship, maybe the nation. But they miss the simple point that everything actually belongs to Krishna and needs to be used in service of Krishna. So both are wrong. Both are materialistic by nature. Then ideal spiritual society, one who knows the art of scientifically utilizing God's property, will no longer encroach upon others' right, quota, or life. Whatever is meant as quota, as part of natural living. I can be happy with whatever Krishna is providing. And then I can use, no, Krishna is providing for all of us. Whoever depends on Krishna, Krishna provides. And then if we have that faith, then instead of putting a lot of energy to improve our situation, we put a lot of energy in improving our Krishna consciousness. Spend time there. Then a right utility of human life. Human life is meant for simple living and high thinking. But some feel that plain living with basic necessities is primitive way of life, Prabhupada says. But that is more natural. That's how the life is, even in higher planets. Janalok, Tapalok, Satyalok, Mahalok, natural life. They depend upon the cows, they depend upon the vegetation provided by God, provided by nature. Live a simple living and they have their own hermitages. They keep it clean. They have whatever basic needs they have, Krishna provides. Water is provided. Everything is provided by the Lord. They depend on those arrangements and they practice devotional service. So that's a state of simple living. How simple were the life of our Goswamis. And then we can make it as complex as we want, but that much prayasa will go in that endeavor. So human life is meant for simple living and high thinking, means absorbed in Krishna is high thinking, absorbed in devotional service. But some feel that plain living with basic necessities is primitive way of life. That's actually the influence of the three modes that impel us for for over endeavor. Higher intelligence given to human beings for God realization. Other animals, other forms of life don't have that higher intelligence. But unfortunately, we misuse. Prabhupada says these are obstacles to bhakti. That's why they come here. Prabhupada says, unfortunately, we misuse our higher intelligence for more economic development, more sense gratification, more comfort, more. And we become caught up in that web that is created by this material nature. So higher intelligence is given to human beings for God realization. Prayasa, but some men misuse their intelligence for material purposes, material progress. Jivasya tattva vigyasa. The real purpose of life is to endeavor to inquire. The prayasa, prayasa in material way is bad. Prayasa in in Krishna consciousness very good. So real purpose of life is to endeavor to inquire about the absolute truth. One should put put energy in self-realization. It requires prayasa. Get up in the morning, take bath, worship the deities, do Mangalarati, offer bhoga to the Lord, reading scriptures, or whatever we do in our own life. Prayasa is there, effort is there. Or like, you know, constructing a temple has a prayasa. Any endeavor is there. But jiva se tattva jigyasa. But right use of prayasa is for serving Krishna. Misuse of prayasa is for serving oneself. For basic needs, prayasa is good. But over endeavor, we may have natural propensity to endeavor. Prabhupada says endeavor to propagate Krishna consciousness. But when it is used for one's own selfish purposes, that prayasa, then that becomes an obstacle to our growth in bhakti. Karmis labor hard to accumulate more and more money for future generations because they do not know their position in the next life. So they try to secure themselves, and others will also help. But that endeavor is not needed because everything is based on one's karma. Whatever, sometimes we work very hard for our children, but actually our children will get the comfort that they are meant to. If it's not in their karma, we may work very hard and they may lose it in one business technique, or some may lose in gambling also. We don't know, right? Whatever is in our karma will only be given to us, or it can go away in cheating also. So many ways things can go. It can go in health issue or disease also. One disease and a big bill in America and gone. So we put so much energy, so much prayasa. So Prabhupada says karmis labor hard to accumulate more and more money for future generations because they do not know their position next life. If we understand that everything we get, or our comfort, everything is arranged by the laws of karma anyways. Narad Muni says, so one does not over endeavor. Rather, one puts the endeavor in progressing in Krishna consciousness. Our topmost priority should be our cultivating our relationship with Krishna. Example, a wealthy karmi took his next birth in a cobbler's house and was beaten by his former sons when he went to his former house. Prabhupada gives this example. So he was very wealthy, and he became a cobbler next birth. मतलब मोची जूते बनाते थे. He made a big mansion for his future generation. But next life, he took birth as a mochi, as a cobbler. And when he went to his own previous life, his own house, his own children beat him up. So Prabhupada says he worked so hard, put so much energy, and what do you get after that? Put so much prayasa, What do you get? You get some slaps from your own sons. Because see the effect of your over endeavor. Rather, that much time you made a mansion for your son could be used in serving Krishna. And whatever is destined for us, we'll get that anyways. Anything very hard to achieve, no need. No need to take up more and more and more and more and more engagements in this material world at the cost of now not much time to hear about Krishna, not much time to serve Krishna. One does their 16 rounds, usually initiated devotees, but no time for other things. Supporting Krishna consciousness then becomes prayasa, over endeavor. That becomes difficult. So next is prajalpa is unnecessary talking. Prajalpa means to waste one's time and energy in useless mundane talks and in criticizing and gossiping about others. It is like the sound of a croaking toads. Gossip about others is, oh, they do like this. Yeah, I heard. When you talk among themselves, there is no need to talk about the third person. Um, Two devotees are talking about, this third devotee is, anything critical about the third devotee becomes a gossip, becomes criticizing, and that's like croaking of a toad. So toad is like uh, frog, frog like frog. Mendak, he makes very rumbling sound, and then the snake comes to know, oh, my food is calling me. He goes and eats, and frog dies. So likewise, this prajalpa, critical thoughts, gossip about others, we invite spiritual death. It is said, using those words, we lose our bhakti content in the heart. We try very hard to chant 16 rounds, gain some spiritual strength, and then we criticize devotees, and then their strength goes out, and then we chant, we feel empty in our heart. So prajalpa means to waste one time and energy in useless talks about worldly matters, about politics, movies. What are your best favorite foods that you like to eat? All considered same category. Mundane talks, the talks that relate to this word, basically talk not related to Krishna. Example, Gyani's dry scholarship. They use a lot of nonsense talks actually. Gyanis speak a lot of rubbish words that does not make any sense, and there is no bhakti content there. Um, Dry scholarship speculation. Gyan is dry scholarship that amounts to nothing more than useless spiritual argumentation. Then even when devotees argue in the sake of preaching, that also becomes prajalpa. No, this is what no, this verse means this, no, this verse means this, and then healthy discussion is good. Healthy discussion is based on Prabhupada purports and our Acharya's purports. Then it's healthy. Okay, let's understand through the parampara what parampara says. But when there is dry argument among themselves, everyone both are trying to defeat their points, then it becomes a Krishna conscious prajalpa. Karmis praise the benefits of pious deeds. Karmis also speak prajalpa. How? Hey, um, by this demigod worship, your desire will be fulfilled. I did this. I went to Sai Baba and mil gaya. I got a green card. So this is all prajalpa. Or pious deeds, whatever they do, what benefit, which generates fondness for religious rituals. Then they become attracted to karma kanda section. So that's prajalpa. Vikarmis materialist engages in talks that are pleasing to the senses. Vikarmis are like, अरे प्रभु जी उस रेस्टोरेंट का गुलाब जामुन खाओगे ना, क्या गुलाब जामुन गरम ऊपर आइसक्रीम लगा के, very nice. So they are engaging in talks that are pleasing to the senses. That's an example of unnecessary talking. और वो वहाँ वहाँ गए waterfall. Great, what a scenic beauty. Then again, it's an unnecessary talk. First of all, our unnecessary engagement, and on the top, unnecessary talk. Prabhupada did allow grahasthas to go for a vacation, and try to make the vacation Krishna conscious. Otherwise, sometimes it may become very overwhelming also. But that's just for oneself, not for no. Actually, Facebook, lot of Prajalpa actually. All these social media sites, engaging in talks that are pleasing to the senses. Newspapers, magazines, novels, novel Prajalpa. Uh, Crossword puzzles, playing cards is gambling actually. Fishing, television is a great form of Prajalpa. Unless you're watching Little Krishna or Krishna centered. Krishna centered is okay. But when it is not Krishna centered, becomes Prajalpa. Debates on useless socio-political schemes. This is what is happening this and other frivolous acts. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur expands on um, all these things. They suck our spiritual energy. Okay, this presentation will be there for us to refer back. Then niyamagraha, accepting or rejecting rules. Niyama means rules. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Tatrarpita niyamita smarnena kala, in the chanting of holy names. No kalaha, to smaran of naam, no kala, no niyam. There are no hard and fast rules. So niyam means rules. Agraha means eagerness to accept, and agraha means failure to accept. So it has two meanings. We can say niyamagraha or niyamagraha. We will explain that in more detail. Thus, niyamagraha has two forms, niyamagraha and niyamagraha. Niyamagraha, agraha means very eager to accept. To accept scripture rules for immediate benefits such as attaining heaven. This niyam, I am very eager to accept this practice of scriptures, because if I do this, then I will attain heaven. To remain overzealous to adhere to the lower rules, even after attaining a higher qualification. To be attached to scripture rules of pragmatism with a desire for sensual enjoyment in this life or the next. So when we accept any anga of bhakti very eagerly, because we have some sense gratification through that, um, very eager to accept a rule because there is um, some ulterior motive, then that becomes niyam agraha, eagerness to accept. Second one is little more difficult to understand. To remain overzealous to adhere to the lower rules even after attaining a higher qualification. Um, when we go up the ladder in Krishna Bhakti, we may have to renounce certain things which are more conducive in our initial stages, but not very conducive in this stage. We may have to take on other responsibilities in terms of service, or we may have to um, give up certain things that were more conducive in the beginning stages, but not very conducive now. Let us see if we can think of some examples. Can anyone think of some examples in this? Overzealous to adhere to the lower rules. How niyam agraha can be an obstacle to our bhakti. Like one rule can be Prabhupada says, eat to your neck, eat only prasad. As long as you eat only prasad, it is very favorable. And then we at a higher stage of bhakti, like uh, uh, Prabhupada says, one has to control that also, because then it will put us to more sleep and make us more lazy. Like we see our Goswamis, they increased their standards of their worship, what they accepted previously as favorable to bhakti, at a later stage became unfavorable to bhakti. But if you're very eager to accept what was favorable that time, now also, then it becomes difficult to go to next level. That's why it says to remain overzealous to adhere to the lower rules even after attaining a higher qualification. So that becomes an example of niyam agraha. Another example, like we see um, in um, yeah, I don't think it's very conducive to give this example. Like initially, especially those who are preaching the message of holy name, they start many programs and want to spread. But then, like Yugal Gishapra was mentioning, at a certain stage, now you have to take on bigger responsibilities. Now you cannot spend that much time on individual, but you have to take on some more responsibilities for serving Prabhupada. That also becomes niyamagra. Now there are some high responsibilities. The time has to go there. But if you're very much attached to something that was conducive at some point of time, then it becomes eagerness to accept something, although the demand is something else. The need is something else. So that also becomes, so one has to see, one has to be careful. As long as one is following the guidance of superiors, one will be safe. And Krishna will give us the intelligence. Okay, this was conducive when I began my Krishna consciousness. But same thing in the beginning of one's Krishna consciousness is not conducive now. Now that principle I cannot follow. Many examples that comes to my mind that I cannot share, but you all are intelligent persons. So that becomes niyam agraha, attached to lower rules and that impede. Rather, one should see what is conducive for me now and then take that. The niyamagraha is to neglect shastric rules and regulations meant for the development of bhakti. To neglect shastric rules and regulations. Like niyamagra means not caring about rules. Hey, these are the regulative principles. There is onion garlic. No, rules and regulation doesn't matter. Ekadashi we should follow. That's okay. Bhakti is supreme. No need of Ekadashi. No need of onion garlic. No need of. These are all nice. And then there is Kartik vow. No, it's okay. All these vows. That's okay. So then, to neglect the Shastri rules and regulations, which are meant for the development of bhakti. Even Rag Bhakti is that's okay. Failure to observe the rules that nourish bhakti, an absence of firm faith. Failure to observe the rules that nourish bhakti. Like okay, if I do this, it will nourish bhakti. But but we may not have faith that how this following this principle will help me in my bhakti. So when there's an absence of firm faith, then we will neglect those activities which are conducive for our bhakti. Like for example, fasting on Janmashtami, fasting God Purnima. Well, that's okay. So we may not have firm faith that how this austerity for the pleasure of the Lord will help me grow in bhakti. So failure to observe the rules that nourish bhakti then becomes niyamagraha, then that becomes a stumbling block. Then neglecting to wear tilak, tulsi mala, chanting on japa mala, eating only prasad, etc. No, it's okay. Every day morning we should wear tilak. If not with the um, gopi chandan, we can wear with water. Tulsi mala, chanting on japa mala. I will chant on my fingers, eating only prasad. These are examples of niyamagraha. Hmm. They're not so important, not willing to accept. So then that becomes a stumbling block. Krishna Prema is very rare and cannot be obtained by neglecting the basic rules of Bhakti sadhana. Mere imitation of Prema without taking step by step sadhana may give temporary happiness but misery at the end. We can imitate love, Prema, and we may think there is no need to go step by step, progress gradually and attain. But one may, without following any rules and regulations, imitate Prema. That may give some temporary happiness, but eventually it will end in misery only. One has to first give up offenses and anarthas. With all the offenses, with all the anarthas and mimicking prema, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in Kalyana Kalpataru is not going to help. It's not sustainable. It will lead to misery eventually. Bhakti, without following the Shrutis, Smritis, Puranas, Narada Pancharatra, leads to a disturbance. Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sanatana Goswami, he says, without following the rules and regulations mentioned, it will cause disturbance in Bhakti. So Niyam Agraha means eager to accept something because some senses are pleased. There is some material benefit. And Agra is not willing to follow. So these are two. Then there's Jana Sangha, bad association. Association with those engaged in a similar line of business is conducive to advancement in that business. Prabhupada says even business people, they come together, they have their own conferences to progress in their own fields. Various conferences people go to. So likewise, association of devotees who are advancing will help us grow in our own bhakti. Jana Sangha refers to avoiding the association of devotees and associating with persons not interested in bhakti, Mayavadis who blaspheme Vaishnavas, Bhukti Kamis, Mukti Kami, Siddhi Kami, those who want mystic perfection, those who want some sense gratification. You develop the qualities of those you associate with. You associate with those who want sense gratification. You will develop a desire for sense gratification. Who want liberation, and if you are not discriminatory, then you will develop the desire for liberation. Or siddhis, you see they're working hard for siddhi, they got some siddhi. You will be inspired to get those siddhis. Atheistic, worldly or sensualistic persons, then when we associate with them, when we see them enjoy, then we may develop a desire. I also want that, and then that will become a deviation. It becomes Jana Sangha. We became inspired by their sense gratification. Now we want that. And we gave up our own dharma of trying to escape the cycle of birth and death and go back to the planet of the Lord. Good association, one should live in the association of Krishna conscious devotees. Bhakta Sannivas. Narottam Das Thakur says, I always want to live in devotee association and engage in the service of the Lord. This is good association. Anything external, material becomes bad association. Mahaprabhu says, Asat Santyag E Vaishnavacha. A Vaishnava is one who gave up the association of non-devotees. Then the last is greed, laulyam. Laulyam means both unsteadiness and greed. Two definitions of laulyam, two meanings of laulyam. Unsteadiness is the fickleness of the mind to accept different kinds of false doctrines or conclusion. Unsteady bhakti. Mind is mind is running. Let me try Buddhism. Let me try this path. Let me try this Mahapurush that I heard, which is outside ISKCON. Or, there are so many people who call them Paramhamsa, Yogananda, this guru, that guru, and all those things. So that makes us unsteady in our path to Krishna Prema. That is also unfavorable. Disturbance. Unsteadiness is the fickleness of the mind to accept different kinds of false doctrines or conclusions. Mind is very fickle, mind is attracted, mind wants to hear everything and no conclusion. Then greed refers to attachment for useless material sense enjoyment or worthless opinions. Example is material prosperity, greed for that, greed for merging into Brahman. No, I want Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. So greed for that type of conception, that type of attainment or goals becomes a disturbance. Then desire for siddhi, greed for those becomes a problem also. By prajalpa, one engages in criticizing sadhus, and by laulyam, one awakens a taste for false conclusions. Both of these lead to namaparad, and one should very carefully avoid them. Please don't criticize sadhus. Vaishnavas' lotus feet are worshipable. When we meet a Vaishnava, or whoever the Vaishnava be, we should think, well, this Vaishnava deserves his feet to be washed by me. I must wash the feet of this Vaishnava. How can I criticize this Vaishnava? So one should not engage in criticizing sadhus. All right. Conclusion: if one fails to give up these six unfavorable things to bhakti, then one's ability to understand the greatness of Krishna bhakti will be lost. One will be forever deviated from the path of bhakti. So one must not over acquire or overeat or use the senses which is not conducive. One should live a simple life. Sure, one can over endeavor in propagating Krishna consciousness for the sake of Krishna consciousness, but not for material gains. One should have time for hearing, reading, chanting, serving, taking devotee association. Should not be too much absorbed in atyahar and prayas that don't have now for Krishna consciousness. One should not criticize sadhus, should not watch or read or discuss subject matter not connected to Krishna, should not go into argumentation. There are all different forms of prajalpa. One should not associate with those and get inspired by those who are materially motivated, because otherwise one will develop those desires and then one will put effort to acquire those. Then again, Jana Sangha will lead to bad association, will lead to Atyahar and Prayas. And then Niyamagra and Niyam Agra, one should be whatever scripture says, one should be willing to follow. Based on our whatever service is given, don't be attached to any conception in Krishna consciousness in the past also. Don't reject the rules and regulations which are described by our Goswamis, by Srila Prabhupada as important for Bhakti principle. Follow the process as it is given and have faith in the process. Don't reject it as not important. Otherwise, they would not have given. Whatever it is, follow as it is. Then we avoid that. And then last is Laulya. Laulya means either greedy for material achievements, accusation, or greedy for other doctrines, or unsteady because of not having firm faith in Krishna Bhakti. All right, so these are the six. That's all we have. If there's any questions, we can take now. Any discussions?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all the best of Srila Prabhupada. It's very grateful, Prabhuji. It was a very nice reminder, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Prabhuji, my inquiry is on the Atyahar aspect. In a Grahastha setup, Prabhuji, sometimes and one doesn't want to eat much, but one feels obliged that the cook so nicely, so let me eat. One doesn't want to eat at all, but then one feels obliged, maybe in a program setup, some get together is there, or even when let's say one doesn't want to eat much in dinner or lunch, but then one feels obliged and the other person feels that it's not, that he doesn't like eating what I've cooked, something like that. So what is how can we go about it, Prabhuji? Like one feels obliged. So is it like, okay, let me eat, but I am not interested in eating at all, but let me eat just to satisfy the other person. So is it comes under atyahar? That's my inquiry.
Understood, Prabhuji. It's a tough question. One place I have seen, like Maharaj does mention that when in journey home, when he was traveling, some people would just put, and he didn't want to displease them, and then he would eat it. So that principle is there, that we want to please devotees, but then we also want to make sure that it is, like, apart from this session, it is healthy for us, Prabhuji. In a way, when we eat without hunger, Ayurveda says it won't get digested anyways, and it overeating leads to um, diseases also many times. So I don't know if it's a regular thing, then maybe it's good to have others an expectation. And if you are visiting like in a program and they feed you extra, once in a while is okay. Proper at festivals you can eat a lot, but generally we should eat based on the demand of the body. Whatever we need, we should eat, and we should eat the right quantity just for the healthy lifestyle proportion. And we can eat nice prasad. But when it becomes overeating, then um, we saw the first, then all the three senses becomes uncontrolled also. Laziness may come, and body has to work very hard to digest. Prabhu. We want to live long in a healthy state in order to serve Krishna. And usually we have seen most of the diseases are because of eating more, not many diseases because of eating less. I mean, unless we are malnutrition or we are not taking, that's different thing. Is it all right, Prabhuji? On regular term, I think it's good to set up the expectation accordingly, gradually work in that direction, and then consume what is necessary.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Right. All right. If there is nothing else, we'll end here. Thank you very much for joining. Panchakalpatarubhesha kripa sindhubhe evacha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय। शिला प्रभुपाद की जय। धन्यवाद प्रणमन। हरे कृष्ण।
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
धन्यवाद
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Danvat Pranam, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
धन्यवाद प्रणाम। हरे
Hare
कृष्ण।
Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam. Thank you so much,
धन्यवाद
Prabhuji.
प्रणाम।
Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Thank you,
धन्यवाद
Prabhuji. Sadarani Devi Dasi. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
हरे
Hari.
कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Danvat Pranam.
धन्यवाद हरे कृष्ण।